What's going on, brothers, sisters, and cousins? This is Mike Iurato, better known as the man from parts unknown, MadLab. Welcome to the MadLabMMA.com, your new home for MMA Daily Fantasy Sports. Okay, guys, before we get started, very quick, very simple, hit subscribe, click the bell below, and anytime I put any kind of content out, whether it be MMA Daily Fantasy Sports, MMA Weekly Bets, MMA Breakdowns, or any other shit I could possibly throw your way, you're actually going to get it. You got the mouse in your hand, dinner's not ready yet, just click the bell below, subscribe. All right, guys, now that you subscribed and you hit the bell below, we can get started. A lot of you guys don't know much about my backstory, even though you know me as MadLab, at MadLabMMA on Twitter. And some of you have no idea who the fuck I am and wondering what the fuck I'm doing on here. So here's a little bit backdrop about myself. I come from a very predominant boxing family. My father boxed, my uncle boxed, my cousins boxed, from golden gloves, diamond gloves, pretty much all over the gamut. You know, my family got separated at a very young age. My mother and father got divorced. I believe I was about 7 years old. And my father started his business out of the basement, and he was a printer. So while he was launching his business, it was obviously late nights when you're launching a business. You got to get the ball rolling. So he had a room in his house, and it was called the boxing room. So when I used to go there to visit him, that's what was my spot. And it's crazy how I still remember this to this day. I still remember the room like I walked into it yesterday. I almost wish I can go back into that house and just see the room, what it looks like today. But when you would walk in there back then, it had just pictures everywhere. All the original fight posters of, Leonard, Hearns, Hagler, Ali, Frazier, Foreman, just all the greats. He had little, trinkets on the ceiling with the balsa wood boxing guys, the wind chimes swinging around. It was just crazy. But on the back wall, he had a lineage of all the greatest fights of all time, all the greatest boxers of all time, all the greatest to ever lace them up. The Sugar Ray Robinsons, the Jake LaMotta's, just you name them. My father had the library. And I became just enthralled with this. I became addicted to just going there and watching. I used to shadow box the TV, and I used to try to figure out their movements and figure out their nuances and stuff like that. And as I got older, my father started bringing me to the gyms with him. He would sit me on the apron, and I would watch him. And I really had that dimension of realness to me now. I wasn't just watching it on TV. I was watching, men actually do this at a very young age. And as I got older after that, my father saw I was taking a really, really hard liking to it. And I wasn't the greatest kid in the world, and I got into a little bit of trouble in school and stuff like that. So my father started bringing me to the gym, and he started training me a little bit. And that's when it really started setting off. I started looking at this like a puzzle. I didn't look at this like a fight. I looked at it a little bit more like a puzzle. And I've always been that way since I was a kid. I've always been a creative person. Even when it came down to the guitar, I refused to take lessons. I had to figure out the neck myself. I had to figure out the patterns and shapes myself. It was just a thing with me. I needed to know the why. My kindergarten teacher, I remember, told my mother one time that your son isn't the type of kid to go to a birthday party and just eat a piece of chocolate cake and say, this is good chocolate cake. Your son is the kid at the party that's got to figure out what are all the ingredients in that cake to make it taste that way. What makes it rich? What gives it the chocolate flavor? What gives it the color? Your son is a very why. I always needed to know the why. And that carried on throughout my life with everything I did. So sports was no different, but MMA and boxing was no different either. And then I remember it was November 12th, 1993, I believe, at McNichols Arena. I wasn't there, but I got to experience Royce Gracie for the first time, and I got my first look at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And this threw me for a loop, because I said if anything was a puzzle and if anything was a chess match, this is what I needed to figure out. So I basically, from there, I started transferring over a little bit. And at the time, obviously, my father was a lot older. He wasn't getting into any of that crap. I continued to box and stuff, but then I started trying my hand in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I really started to like it. I started taking a firm liking to it, and not because it was a form of fighting. I liked it because it was a puzzle. I looked at it very differently. I knew I never wanted to be a fighter, and I never wanted to compete in anything. I was a little bit different. I was the guy in the background that I wanted to wire everything together. Hence came my education with, exercise science and kinesiology and human movement, and I was always just into that. What makes the body, what kind of octane can I put in the body to make it perform at its optimum level? So I got into nutrition. What kind of exercises can I do to really maximize the muscle potential? How do I figure out who has the best genetic code for certain elements of fighting? That's what I just loved about it. It was much more of a game for me, a puzzle to me, to try to figure out the why. And that is where I really started finding my place in this sport. I've done nutrition for numerous people. I've trained a couple people. I've cut weight for people for the Abu Dhabi trials. I've done, film work for people. I've done so many things all around, articles, write-ups, you name it, I've done it. I mean, even way back in the day before I started in the MMA DFS platform about 5-6 years ago. It's gone way deeper than that. So, then about 5-6 years ago, I broke into the DFS community with MMA and I started writing content. What I noticed about MMA Daily Fantasy Sports when I came in initially was that the content was good. It wasn't watered down, but it was very metric based. It was very numbered based. And a lot of people still do that, and that's okay. It's really what your belief system is. That just never computed with me. I never was able to digest metrics with fighting and numbers with fighting. I looked at it very differently. For me, football, baseball, basketball, there's a lot of metrics involved. There's a lot of numbers involved. There's a lot of analytics involved. I get all that. With MMA and with boxing, it's a little bit different. It's the matchup. It's very matchup based. So numbers really don't mean much to me. I'm a firm believer in the eye test. And all the greatest trainers in the world and all the greatest boxing minds in the world, guys like Teddy Atlas and stuff, they're not sitting in front of a computer and they're not sitting in front of numbers and figuring out metrics and punch counts and takedowns and accuracy and all that stuff. To me is bonuses, but they go by the eye test. And that's what I have done. And what I did when I came in, it was like, I'm going to take these metrics. I'm kind of going to throw them away. Not going to throw them away. I'll utilize them to a point. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to inject my creativity with what I know from the eye test. And all of a sudden, I'm very wordy. I ramble a lot. I'm sure you'll tell in my videos that I ramble a lot. But I started writing these very detailed and these long-winded articles. And I wasn't sure if people were going to read them. I got to be honest with you. I was like, these are a little wordy. I don't know if people are going to read them. And I got such a great response from them. And for the past 5-6 years, I just took the ball and I pushed the envelope and I pushed the envelope and I pushed the envelope and I just ran. And years later, I've had numerous people tell me, you got to go off on your own. You got to launch your own thing. You're under an umbrella. You have a ceiling and you're never going to be able to break that barrier of your full potential. And I knew and I agreed with that. And I just knew I needed to wait for the right time. Then obviously with the whole COVID thing, it wasn't the right time. And then I just, I was really banging heads together with a very dear friend of mine for over 20 years. And we decided, yeah, this is true. I have a ceiling right now that I want to push the envelope and I want to do so many things. And I want to give, the community all this knowledge that I have and everything that I built up. What good is it for me to have it and just hold on to it? I just want to cut my leash and go. So that's where the MadLabMMA.com has come to fruition, and I really hope you guys enjoy it. The funny thing about the whole process is, when you're doing it, you get so caught up, you don't really have time to look back. You got to keep going, you got to keep going, you got to keep going. So when me and my partner were really building things out and getting things together and putting things in folders and organizing things and just looking at my past for the past 5 years with my work in MMA Daily Fantasy Sports, MMA weekly bets and, my MMA breakdowns and such like that, we really started to digest, how much success a lot of my subscribers and my players have had. I mean, we've had guys hit for 100,000, 150,000, 20,000. I've had numerous people message me and tell me that, they were able to pay off their college loans, who bought a house, who was able to get out of debt. I mean, it's just the screenshots I would get and the text message, the direct messages I would get. It was overwhelming to really just sit down one night with him and really look at some of the work we've done together as far as just the money won. I mean, it was just insane, some of the money that these people were winning. And that in itself was a reward for me, and it really motivated me even more, and we had that conversation. Like sometimes you get into a little bit of a lull, your schedule. You wake up Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Wednesday's film day, Thursday, you got to do this Friday. And you never get a chance to really look back how people have learned from you and how you've learned from people. The mistakes you've made, the advances you've made. And that's all a part of the game. And that's a part of the game with MMA, Daily Fantasy Sports, with MMA betting, with life, with your family, with friendships, with relationships, anything you do. It's about knowing where you faulted and also knowing where you advanced. And that was my biggest takeaway from, when I left my past company, coming into this company, that in between, when we were gathering all these things together, just the testimonials and just the things that we went through and all the screenshots and the messages and everything we were gathering for this new site, it was really, really overwhelming, and it really put me into another gear. And now here we are. And we are launched now for about a week, and we had a fantastic first week. We went completely perfect on our bet pack. We had some people cashing again in MMA Daily Fantasy Sports. We couldn't have asked for a better start. And like I said, I feel like I am in another gear now, and I'm completely rewired. And I really feel like I already started pushing the envelope again with myself. And it's never a contest where you guys really got to digest. It's not a contest. You're not in a contest with anyone but yourself. You know what I mean? So I don't look at myself as I'm competing with anybody. I don't look at myself as I'm trying to be better than anyone. I'm trying to every day beat myself. And that's one takeaway that you guys should always look at, is try to beat yourself. Don't worry about what people are winning or what people are losing or what people are getting or what they're not getting. Worry about beating yourself, competing with yourself. Wake up every day, look in the mirror, and compete with yourself. And that's basically what I'm doing with this site, with the MadLabMMA.com. I am competing with myself all over again. I am doing everything. I mean, we have Monkey Knife Fight. We have weekly MMA weekly bets. We have MMA Daily Fantasy Sports. We have the full breakdowns. We have MMA podcasts. We are going to do Bellator. We are going to do boxing. We are doing everything that I love, that I always wanted to do, that I maybe couldn't have in the past. It's all coming out now, and it's coming out in a big way. So that's where this has spawned. That was the whole idea that we were trying to digest, during COVID and going into this. And now here we are. So like I said, please subscribe, click the bell below, get your notifications for anything that I'm going to be putting out with MMA DFS, with MMA weekly bets, with the breakdowns, with anything that I put on here. On this page is free. If you'd like to go and visit my site and really get the nuts and bolts of it and let me do all the heavy lifting and really show you my process and how deep and how much time I put into this, please go over to MadLabMMA.com. We have a multitude of packages over there that you can purchase, and I'd love to see you over there. We have a private community called the War Lab where everybody goes in there. We all hang out during the fights. We talk about the fights. We talk about some other things. I mean, we get pretty personal in there too. It's a really, really good time, and I really hope I see you guys there. This is MadLab, and I'll talk to you soon.